In Brazil, during the last presidential debate ahead of the runoff elections, candidate Lula Silva said that Jair Bolsonaro should be accountable for his mismanagement of the COVID-19 health emergency. The government of Canada evaluates possible intervention in Haiti, despite the rejection by the population and the United Nations Security Council. Russia's defense ministry accused British Navy personnel of being involved in the explosions at the Nord Stream gas pipelines back in September. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada. And now we begin with the news. In Brazil, during the last presidential debate ahead of the second round, candidate Lula Silva said that Jair Bolsonaro should be paid for the mistakes made during the COVID-19 pandemic, which has left over 690,000 people dead. During a TV confrontation, Lula pointed out that at least 300,000 people died in Brazil due to the president's negligence, his decision to delay the purchase of vaccines against COVID-19, and his resistance to recognize the seriousness of the disease. Likewise, the former president and the candidate for the Workers' Party blamed his rival for the impoverishment of the population in the last 4 years and blamed Bolsonaro for bringing international isolation to the country during his government. And British parliamentarian Jeremy Corbyn is in Brazil this week, visiting with leftist political and social movement leaders. After meeting with MST leadership this morning, he spoke to TeleSUR about his visit.
Brazil to observe the elections, and as a long-term friend of the PT, of Lula, and of the movement of landless peoples, we've had a fascinating introduction to the election process. And we've had a description this morning about the achievements of the movement of landless peoples and their hopes for land redistribution, for sustainable and fairer agriculture in the future. Brazil is probably the most economically divided country in Latin America, if not the world, and a Lula government will begin to change all of that.
And after a visit with MST leadership today in Sao Paulo, British parliamentarian Jeremy Corbyn spoke to TeleSUR about what a victory by Lula in Sunday's presidential election will mean for the people of Latin America and the world.
We need Lula to win on Sunday in order that the left around the world can realize that it is possible to defeat the power of big business and big media that have done so much to vilify Lula, Dilma, Evo and so many other people over the past few years. And in that victory, all of us all over the world who are fighting for peace and justice and solidarity will be stronger.
Now we move on to other topics. This Friday in Ecuador, police raided the house of Energy Minister Jair Vera, who is under investigation by the public prosecutor for allegedly collecting money in exchange for political posts. The prosecutor carried out 2 raids, one in Quito and one in Guayaquil, as part of the investigation for alleged bribery involving Jair Vera. According to local media, the accusers have made public a recording in which former Petroecuador executive Italo Cedeño is heard saying the Minister of Energy has offered public posts in exchange for money. In this regard, Javier Vera said that the accusations against him are false and unfounded, and that this has been orchestrated by mafias combated by his office. In Bolivia, labor and social movements called for mobilizations in defense of the government of President Luis Arce Catacora against the destabilization attempts of the right wing of Cruceña. According to the chronogram of the Bolivian Central Labor Union, the mobilizations will take place in stages in each departmental capital, starting on Friday, November 4th. In this sense, the social organizations approved a resolution in which they ratified the unity of the social organizations, the support of the national government led by President Luis Arce, and the defense of the continuity of the process of change and the cultural democratic revolution in Bolivia.
To strengthen a process of change and a government democratically elected by the majority will of the Bolivian people, headed by Brother Luis Arce and Sister David Chacohuanca, we call for large departmental mobilizations and rallies to strengthen and defend democracy and a process of change to be held in each departmental capital.
In Haiti, the new cholera outbreak has reached 8 of 10 departments, affecting mostly children. At least 52 Haitians have died from the latest cholera outbreak less than a month since the first case was reported. The Haitian Health Ministry says that 243 people are suspected of having been infected, and among them half are children. The authorities said that people with symptoms such as diarrhea and vomiting should go to a health care facility. However, many hospitals are closed due to the fuel and medicine shortages. The previous outbreak, which occurred in 2010, claimed the lives of 10,000 people. We'll take a short break, but first, remember you can follow us on our TikTok account at TeleSUR English, in which you will be able to see news in different formats, news updates and more. Other stories coming up, stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. The government of Canada evaluates possible intervention in Haiti, despite rejection by the population and the United Nations Security Council. According to local media, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau will analyze with the U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken the presumed intervention in Haiti in response to the request of the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres. The head of the organization indicated that the objective of the intervention is to stabilize the social-political situation in the Caribbean country. For their part, the Haitian population and the UN Security Council continue to reject the possible foreign intervention, while demanding that the sovereignty of the nation be respected. In the United States, the husband of the President of the House of Representatives of the country, Nancy Pelosi, was attacked and severely beaten with a hammer in his residence. According to local media, the attacker broke into the house of the high official in the city of San Francisco, shouting, "Where is Nancy? Where is Nancy?" They also indicated that the subject took a hammer to hit Pelosi's husband, who at the time of the attack was not at home. Police reported that they arrested the perpetrator, while the husband of the official is receiving the corresponding medical attention. The assault injected new discomfort into the country's already toxic political climate, just 11 days before the midterm elections.
Our officers observed Mr. Pelosi and the suspect both holding a hammer. The suspect pulled the hammer away from Mr. Pelosi and violently assaulted him with it. Our officers immediately tackled the suspect, disarmed him, took him into custody, requested emergency backup, and rendered medical aid. The suspect has been identified as 42-year-old David DePepe.
In the United States, business tycoon Elon Musk made official the purchase of the social network Twitter. Employees of the social network are worried about the possibility of being fired. The social network was acquired by X Holdings II, the company created by Musk to manage the Twitter Incorporated operation, at a price of $54.2 per share, bringing the total sum of the purchase and sale to $44 billion, according to U.S. media reports. The same information points out that Musk is merging the social network with a holding company that will control the platform. Meanwhile, Twitter will cease to be a public company and from November 8th will become a private one. According to Bloomberg, the layoffs of senior executives come after the billionaire's plans to shed 75% of the workforce, which is about 7,500 employees. Now move on to other topics. Russia's defense ministry on Saturday accused the British Navy personnel of being involved in the explosions at the Nord Stream gas pipelines last month. The defense ministry said that according to available information, representatives of a unit of the British Navy took part in the planning, provision and implementation of a terrorist attack in the Baltic Sea on September 26, blowing up the Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2 gas pipelines. The defense ministry also said that British specialists from the same unit directed Ukrainian drone attacks on ships of Russian Black Sea Fleet in Crimea earlier on Saturday, which were largely repelled by the Russian forces.
The preparation of this terrorist attack and the training of the Ukrainian military of the 72nd Center for Special Naval Operations were held under the control of British specialists based in the city of Oshakov in the Mykolaiv region of Ukraine.
The partial mobilization in Russia has ended, Russian Defense Ministry Sergei Shoigu said during his meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Shoigu said the target of 300,000 mobilized personnel will reach and no further mobilization target is planned. Also said that in the training camps, some 218,000 mobilized persons are improving their training, while another 82,000 were sent to the area of the Russian special military operation. He specified that from now on, recruitment will continue only among volunteers and candidates for contractual service, and those who take part in the conflict will receive veteran status and an adequate package of social benefits. The Russian central bank kept its key rate at 7.5%, an expected measure aimed at supporting the economy against the global trend of rising borrowing costs. For the first time since the beginning of the military operation in Ukraine, the key rate remains unchanged. After Russia was hit by Western sanctions over the operation, the bank drastically raised the key rate from 9.5% to 20% to counter inflation. The bank said it had observed a further slowdown in annual inflation and expected inflation for the end of 2022 to total between 12 and 13%. There are also growing restrictions in the labor market, driven in part by the partial mobilization, the bank said. The central bank predicted gross domestic product will contract by between 3 and 3.5%. And we have more news coming up after a final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back. Iranian security authorities on Friday denounced foreign spy agencies as responsible for the recent unrest and destabilization in the country. The Iranian Ministry of Intelligence and the Iranian Intelligence Organization claimed that they possessed documents with evidence indicating that the United States Central Intelligence Agency, the CIA, planned destabilizing actions against the country. They also accused the CIA of playing a key role in fomenting social unrest in close collaboration with the espionage services of the United Kingdom, the Israeli regime, and Saudi Arabia. These statements follow the attack perpetrated by terrorist groups on the Shah Chirag shrine in the city of Shiraz 2 days ago, which left 7 dead or several dead and wounded. In this context, the government of Iran rejected the interference actions promoted by the U.S. government. In Iran, large crowds marched through cities to condemn a mass shooting Wednesday at a Shiite Muslim shrine in the southern city of Shiraz that killed at least 15 people. This Friday, there were marches in different cities of the country. In Tehran, the capital, a large number of people gathered in the central square to condemn the crime. Punishing the perpetrators and restoring security were the main demands of the demonstrators. The attack in Shiraz came at a time when the country is the scene of unrest and violence, which began with the protests unleashed more than a month ago after the death of the young woman Masha Amini. The demonstrations turned violent, in some cases following foreign interference. The protesters call on the compatriots or their fellow nationals to be vigilant about the situation in the country. Iranian authorities have assured that the masterminds will not go unpunished. At least 2 Palestinians were killed and others injured after an attack by Israeli occupation forces in the city of Nablus in the occupied country. According to local media, there are Imad Abu Rashid, 47 years old, and Rasmi Shamid, 35, who works as agents in the Palestinian Civil Defense Unit. They also indicated that the Israeli occupation forces opened fire at a checkpoint. This comes after the Israeli police stormed the center of Nablus in the early hours of Tuesday morning, killing several Palestinians, including Wadi al-Ahu, one of the most prominent leaders of the Lion's Den group. In this context, the Palestinian government denounced that Tel Aviv is blowing up the situation in the illegally occupied territories through its policy of siege against the Palestinian citizens. The authorities also held the Israeli government responsible for the crimes perpetrated against the civilian population. Likewise, they urged the international community to intervene so that Tel Aviv stops the escalation of tensions in its territory. On Saturday, 2 car bomb explosions at the Education Ministry in Somalia's capital, Mogadishu, left scores of people wounded and several presumably dead. The first explosion hit the ministry, then the second blast occurred as ambulances arrived and people gathered to help the victims. There was no immediate claim of responsibility for the attack, but Islamist group Al-Shabaab remains a potent force despite multinational efforts to degrade its leadership. Fighters from the group were ousted from the Somali capital Mogadishu in 2011, but they continue to stage attacks on military, government, and civilian targets. The group last week claimed responsibility for an attack on a hotel in the port city of Kismayo that killed 9 people and wounded 47 others. In South Africa, tens of thousands of Zulus donned traditional attire attended the state coronation of their new king in a ceremony that appeared to finally end a bitter succession feud. King Mzuzulu Kasweltihini took the throne of South Africa's richest and most influential traditional monarchy to lead the 11 million-strong Zulu nation. The ceremony then took place in Durban's Moses Damahidat Stadium, saw the first Zulu coronation in more than 50 years, and the first where the Zulu king was recognized by a black president, as the last coronation in 1971 was conducted under the former apartheid government. While the king has no legislative powers, he acts as a custodian of Zulu traditions and customs and is viewed by many as a moral guide. Zulus account for 1/5 of South Africa's population and are the biggest ethnic group in the country. And we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media for all the latest news. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.